This show is part of OnePlace, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to the briefing. We are tracking a major military scandal, several high-profile criminal trials, and a tragic incident at a shopping mall. Let's get into the details of today's top stories.
A soldier allegedly bet on classified military operations.
A mall shooting leaves 1 dead and 5 injured.
A Senate candidate faces charges after a pool incident.
The trial begins for the murder of Athena Strand.
A defendant demands his mother during a plea hearing.
Brothers are charged after a fatal Valentine's Day shooting.
An award-winning chef is accused of killing his wife.
A mother testifies about her son's troubled childhood history.
Starting with our first story, the Justice Department has unsealed a truly shocking indictment against Gannon Ken Van Dyke, a U.S. Army soldier. He is being charged with using highly sensitive classified information to place bets on Polymarket, which is a popular prediction marketplace. This isn't just a simple case of gambling. It involves the alleged theft of non-public government information and commodities fraud. Van Dyke was reportedly involved in the planning of Operation Absolute Resolve, a military mission aimed at capturing Nicolas Maduro. Instead of maintaining the secrecy required for such a high-stakes operation, he allegedly used his insider knowledge to wager on the timing and outcome of the mission for personal financial gain. This case highlights a new frontier for insider trading, where prediction markets are being exploited by those with access to state secrets.
Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche emphasized that while prediction markets are a relatively new phenomenon, the federal laws protecting national security information are very much in effect. FBI Director Kash Patel also weighed in, stating that any clearance holders who think they can cash in on their knowledge will be held accountable. The indictment includes charges of wire fraud and making unlawful monetary transactions. Van Dyke is scheduled to appear before a magistrate judge in North Carolina, but the case is assigned to the Southern District of New York. U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton made it clear that prediction markets are not a safe haven for misappropriating confidential data. This breach of trust is being treated as a serious threat to the integrity of military operations and the safety of service members involved in the mission.
Next up, tragedy struck the Mall of Louisiana in Baton Rouge on Thursday, when a shooting broke out in the food court. Police Chief Thomas Morse Jr. confirmed that at least 1 person was killed and 5 others were injured. The violence apparently stemmed from an argument between 2 groups of people that escalated rapidly. Currently, 5 individuals are in custody, but law enforcement is still searching for other potential suspects with the help of the FBI and the ATF. Among the victims are 3 seniors from Ascension Episcopal School in Lafayette, which is about 50 miles away. The mayor of Lafayette, Monique Blanco-Boulet, expressed her concern for the students, though specific details about their injuries haven't been released. The community is reeling as they wait for more information on the condition of those hospitalized after this senseless act of violence.
Baton Rouge Mayor Sid Edwards took a hard stance, promising that those responsible would be caught and removed from the streets. He emphasized that this type of violence will not be tolerated in the city. Chief Morse clarified earlier reports, noting that while there were initially 10 reported victims, the count was refined to 1 deceased and 5 injured. 1 victim is currently in surgery, while others sustained minor injuries. The police are actively calling on the public to provide any cell phone, video, or information that could help identify the remaining suspects. It is no longer considered an active shooter incident, but the investigation is very much ongoing. The mall, usually a place for families and shoppers, has become a crime scene as investigators work to piece together the exact sequence of events that led to the gunfire.
Now let's shift to Frederick Alfred, a candidate for the Colorado Senate, was arrested in Key West, Florida, on charges of felony child neglect. The arrest followed a terrifying incident at a hotel pool where his 4-year-old daughter was found unconscious and foaming at the mouth. According to police reports, Alfred allegedly left his daughter and his 6-year-old son unattended at a hot tub for about 5 minutes while he went to the bar. When officers arrived, a bystander was already performing CPR on the young girl. Alfred reportedly arrived on the scene holding an alcoholic drink and initially refused to let emergency responders take the children to the hospital, despite warnings about the risk of secondary drowning or other complications. He eventually relented, but the details in the arrest affidavit paint a picture of significant negligence and a strong smell of alcohol on the candidate.
The affidavit also noted that Alfred's son had swallowed pool water while left alone. Receipts found by police showed purchases for drinks called Bourbon and Bubbles and Levitate. the man who rescued the girl told authorities that the 6-year-old boy had approached him for help because his sister was unresponsive. It's a harrowing situation that has led to 2 counts of felony child neglect for the political hopeful. Alfred was booked into the Monroe County Jail, and his next court date is set for May 5. His campaign has not yet provided a comment on the situation, and it remains unclear how this will impact his run for office in Colorado. The focus remains on the recovery of the children and the legal proceedings following this near-fatal lapse in supervision at a public resort area.
Moving on to, in Fort Wayne, Texas, the trial of Tanner Lynn Horner is set to begin, and he faces a potential death sentence. Horner is charged with the aggravated kidnapping and capital murder of 7-year-old Athena Strand. The little girl disappeared from her home in November 2022, while her mother was nearby. Investigators used video from a FedEx delivery van to identify Horner as the driver who had Athena in his vehicle. According to the arrest affidavit, Horner confessed to accidentally hitting the girl with his van. He told police he panicked, fearing she would tell her father about the accident, and decided to kill her. He allegedly admitted to attempting to break her neck before ultimately strangling her with his bare hands. He then led authorities to her body, which was found in a river about 15 miles away from her home.
The details of the confession are chilling, as Horner described the moments leading up to the murder in the back of his delivery van. Athena had been sorting laundry in a converted storage shed that served as her bedroom just before she was taken. Her mother, Elizabeth Strand, called 911 less than an hour after she went missing, sparking a massive search. The prosecution is seeking the death penalty given the age of the victim and the brutal nature of the crime. Opening statements are scheduled for April 7, and the community is bracing for the emotional testimony that will surely follow. This case has drawn national attention to the safety of home deliveries and the vetting processes for contract drivers. As the trial commences, the focus is on seeking justice for a young life that was tragically and violently cut short.
Next, we have a courtroom in Miami-Dade saw an unexpected outburst this week during what was supposed to be a routine plea hearing. Reginald Lewis Jackson, who is accused of a double murder from 2013, was expected to plead guilty alongside his co-defendant, Roderick Martin. However, the proceedings fell apart when Jackson realized his mother was not in the gallery. Jackson is charged with the murders of Annette Anderson, a 69-year-old minister, and her 20-year-old grandson, Tyrone Leonard Walker Jr. The victims were found bound and gagged with gunshot wounds over a decade ago. Jackson had been offered a 40-year sentence in exchange for his plea, which would have avoided a trial. But as he looked around the room and failed to see his mother, he began shouting profanities and demanding her presence, eventually walking out of the courtroom while still handcuffed to his co-defendant.
Jackson's emotional distress seemed to stem from the death of his grandmother, who passed away shortly after attending one of his previous hearings. He expressed a desperate fear that he might never see his mother again if he didn't see her that day. Because of his outburst and refusal to proceed, the judge was forced to reject the plea deals for both men. This means the case, which has already been delayed for nearly 13 years, may now head to a full trial. The victims' families have been waiting since 2013 for closure. Annette Anderson was a respected minister, and her grandson was an aspiring electrical engineer working at Burger King. Now, the legal process is stalled once again, with the next court date set for May 5. It remains to be seen if a new deal can be reached.
Now to. In Houston, 2 brothers are facing charges following a fatal shooting on Valentine's Day that claimed the life of 17-year-old Mariah Alatorre. Enrique Aguilar, 19, is charged with murder, while his 18-year-old brother Romeo is charged with possession of a prohibited weapon. The shooting occurred at a large party with about 300 people in attendance. When police arrived, the crowd dispersed, and Mariah was driven to a hospital by a friend. However, her mother has raised serious questions about why Mariah was taken to an urgent care clinic 40 miles away instead of a nearby hospital. The delay in receiving proper medical attention is a central point of grief for the family. Mariah eventually died at a hospital in northwest Houston. A judge noted that video evidence allegedly shows one of the suspects smirking and laughing over the victim's body after the shooting occurred.
Mariah's mother described her daughter as a funny and caring soul who was deeply loved by her family. She spent the night of the shooting trying to call Mariah, only to eventually track her phone to the urgent care center, where she learned the devastating news. The investigation is trying to fill in the gaps of what happened during those critical hours between the shooting and her death. The behavior of the suspects after the gunfire has added a layer of cruelty to an already tragic event. With hundreds of people at the party, police are still looking for more witnesses to come forward. The community is mourning a young girl whose life was cut short during what should have been a night of celebration. The Aguilar brothers remain in custody as the legal system begins to process the murder and weapons charges against them.
Then there is a shocking case has emerged from the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where an award-winning chef is accused of murdering his wife. Jeffrey C. MacDonald was arrested after police found his wife, Emma MacDonald, dead in a room at the Hotel UMass on campus. According to the police affidavit, MacDonald admitted to intentionally beating his wife to death using his hands, feet, and various blunt objects. He reportedly told investigators that it was his specific intent to kill her. When officers first arrived at the hotel room, they encountered a violent struggle with MacDonald, who allegedly threw objects at them and struck an officer in the face multiple times. Both Jeffrey and Emma were employees of the university, making this tragedy particularly impactful for the campus community. The university chancellor described the event as heartbreaking and deeply unsettling for everyone who knew the couple.
During his arraignment, MacDonald pleaded not guilty to the murder charge and the assault on the police officer. Despite his alleged confession to investigators, his legal defense is now in motion. The judge has ordered him to be held without bond and has also mandated a competency evaluation to determine if he is fit to stand trial. The details of what led to such a violent outburst remain unknown to the public, as authorities have not yet released a motive. Emma MacDonald was only 31 years old, and her death has left the UMass community in shock. The hotel, which is often used by visiting families and university guests, became the site of a gruesome crime scene. As the legal process moves forward, the focus will be on the results of the psychiatric evaluation and the evidence gathered from the hotel room struggle.
And finally, returning to the Tanner Horner case in Texas, the sentencing phase has brought emotional testimony from the defendant's mother. Mrs. Horner took the stand and expressed her own anger and heartbreak over her son's actions, stating through tears that Athena Strand was just a baby. However, the defense is using her testimony to provide context for Horner's life in an attempt to avoid the death penalty. She described a childhood marked by her own struggles with addiction to meth and heroin, as well as her diagnosis of bipolar and schizoaffective disorder. She admitted to smoking during her pregnancy and recalled a time when a young Tanner found her unconscious on the bathroom floor and thought she was dead. The defense is arguing that these environmental factors, combined with Horner's later diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, should be considered by the jury when deciding his fate.
Mrs. Horner also testified that her son was severely bullied as a child and struggled to form connections with his peers. She described it as hard to watch, as other children were not interested in talking to him. While she expressed her fury at what he did to Athena, her testimony aimed to show a cycle of trauma and mental health issues that plagued their family. The jury now has the heavy task of weighing these mitigating factors against the brutal reality of the kidnapping and murder of a 7-year-old girl. Horner has already pleaded guilty, so the trial is strictly about whether he will spend the rest of his life in prison or face execution. The emotional weight in the courtroom is immense, as both the victim's family and the defendant's mother grapple with the devastating consequences of Horner's actions on that day in 2022.
That wraps up our briefing for today. Thank you for joining us for these important updates.
Be sure to follow us for your next daily update on the stories that matter most. We will see you back here tomorrow.